You're listening to the Agent and the Fan podcast with sports agent Chris Leible and fan Lou Columna.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Agent and the Fan podcast. I'm Chris Leible. I'm the agent. I'm here with my broadcast partner, Lou Columna. He's the fan. What's up, Lou? How are you?
Not much, man. Interesting week.
Yeah, it's interesting week. World Series just completed yesterday. Exciting games. I think for the most part, it was a good series. Probably could have been a little better, but I enjoyed it, and it was. I think we'll get into it a little bit more. But we have a special guest that I want to introduce and bring him in right now because I think it's going to be great to have him on. Bob Nightengale. Bob is from the USA Today, longtime reporter from of course the USA Today. Bob, how are you?
How you guys doing? Good.
How you doing?
Yeah, doing great, thanks.
Good. So you didn't have to travel too much.
No, I'm having my easiest World Series ever. Just turn my expense account. Got to be the cheapest by far.
Bob lives in Arizona, so he hasn't had to travel besides the initial trip to Texas for the World Series. So Bob, obviously, it was an interesting World Series. It was the one. I think it was I jokingly was talking to my kids about it and saying it was the World Series no one was expecting. So, but it was. I thought it was, for me, it was interesting. It was two hot teams came in. Both seemed like they could be like teams of destiny, and it was interesting, especially the first game. But I think the first game was the key game in the series.
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. I mean, Diamondbacks aren't good enough to blow a game like that. You know, they could have won also, they could have won a couple of games. Even, last night in Game 5, that was a winnable game. I mean, they had base runners on all night long. All for 9 with runners in scoring position. I mean, you can't have your number 3 guy bunt. You got your best player bunting, and they couldn't get him in. So they wasted so many opportunities. But, yeah, it was a entertaining series. I'm not sure how many people watched it, but it was entertaining.
Well, I think the true baseball fans liked it. And for me, what I liked about this series was it put the spotlight on some guys that maybe aren't the most well-known players in the games, but happen to be terrific ball players. So I enjoyed getting to see that. Obviously, some of the young talent was great too, but to see some of the some of these guys that are just terrific ball players that don't play in New York or Los Angeles or whatever. So that I thought that was great.
Yeah. I have a lot of athleticism too, particularly on the Diamondbacks. I mean, the Rangers too, for that matter. But particularly the Diamondbacks, people didn't know, the Corbin Carrolls and Alec Thomas of the world. Guys put the ball in play, guys run, and it shows in baseball really this year. If you have a young athletic team, you could go a long way.
That's a great point.
For sure. Bob, one of the things that struck me about this series, and I think moving forward in baseball, and I think there was some discussion about it, with the commissioner, is the starting pitcher, and I think, and I hope that we're going back to those days because, seeing bullpen games in the World Series, it's just, to me, listen, Chris and I are fans. I wasn't, sitting in front of my couch watching the game at every point, but, I was watching it, but that to me was the one thing that was missing, and I felt like in this series in particular, it to me showed the importance of having a third legit starting pitcher.
Yeah, I mean the Diamondbacks. I thought they were a year away because of that reason. It pretty much was a 2-man staff all season with a Zach Gallen, who's from he's from Jersey, Merrill Kelly, from Pennsylvania there. And then Brandon Pfaadt, Tennessee kid, he kind of came on late for the Diamondbacks, and they had no number 4 starter, and it haunted them. As we saw, they gave up 11 runs in Game 4, never recovered. I mean, you shouldn't have Joe Menaply starting a World Series game for you. And I think baseball is going to try to change that. Right now they went to a 12-man staff. 13-man staff. I think we'll see a 12-man staff here in a couple of years too. So just to get guys to start grooming them to be starting pitchers and go longer in games. Nobody wants to, see a bullpen game, particularly in a World Series.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. That's how I felt. I really, I was pulling for the Phillies. I had no dog in this fight. I thought the Phillies were an interesting team, and I think because of their starting pitching, I felt would have been more of a challenge to Texas.
No, I think so too. I mean, I still think Atlanta was the best team, in the postseason. Phillies were second best team. Phillies beat Atlanta. So yeah, I'm sure Phillies are sitting back like, man, we should have won that thing. I guess the Astros can say the same thing. They're taking Texas a 7. But yeah, I mean, Phillies were dynamic. Yeah, I still blame the Phillies loss. They were rolling. They came to Phoenix, flew in. They didn't take batting practice the first day, the workout day. Next day, game 3, they didn't take batting practice again. They were never the same. I think that time off hurt those guys.
That's a great point. What is your thought? And we've Chris and I have discussed this before. What is your thought on the bye week for the top team?
Well, I mean, at least it's 4 or 5 days. It's not a. I remember, covering the Tigers there, and they had the 7 or 8 days off, and it cost them the 2 World Series. They swept both ALCSs, and they were rusty. Now, on the flip end, Washington Nationals in 2019, they had about 7 or 8 days off, and they won the World Series. So, a little bit of an excuse. I think in some of these things, like the Dodgers, had no starting pitching at all. Atlanta lost 2 of their guys, and, Charlie Morton and Max Fried had the blister problem. So I think some of these cases, just the pitching hurt them. In the Phillies case, I mean, they had a layoff. They usually decide not to take batting practice. That was almost that self-inflicted pain.
Well, I think it's interesting. The game has really changed quite a bit, even over the last bunch of years. Batting practice, it's interesting you say that because I think about that all the time. It really was a staple, and now it's really not, which is fascinating to me. Even and the outside batting practice, which as a fan was a thrill, and was always just seemed to be an interesting part of the game or an interesting part of the social part of the game, is really very limited, if at all. And a lot of the guys just hit in the cage and are watching videos and things like that. So it's interesting how the game has changed in that aspect.
Yeah, I mean, you can count on one hand the times that Shohei Ohtani's taken outdoor batting practice this year. Is always down in a cage. But, you got to know the elements. Arizona, for instance, like the darkest ballpark there is, just the lights are bad.
Yeah.
MLB is making them change the lights. And I think the Phillies had trouble adjusting to that. But, yeah, it's just not like the days. I mean, remember the whole, the great McGuire-Sosa home run race where McGuire would actually go on and BP on purpose just because you want to put on a show for the fans. You don't see that anymore.
Yeah, no, that's a weird thing. And I think that's another one of those things. Like, I know as a kid, I always loved to go early to BP and watch and see who was gonna, you said put on a show and that sort of a thing. And that's, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, people love that stuff. I mean, back in McGuire's days, the opposing teams would come out early for batting practice just to see what he'd do.
Yeah, it's true. Very true.
And Bob, to that point, why do you think that's changed over the years?
I don't know. I don't know if it's a, sleep doctors get involved with, teams now waiting the next day to travel, that sort of things. I don't know if people are saying, hey, it's easier here. Don't get worn out. I think there's so many people in different people's ears, telling them what to do. I remember when George Brett became the interim hitting coach the last half of the season for the Rangers. I mean, it's for the Kansas City Royals. He says, not only can I not relate to the players, I can relate to the coaches. These guys are showing up at 11:30 in the afternoon, taking soft toss, everything else. Back in his days, you show up in the team bus, go out, take BP, and you're ready for the game. Now I think guys are doing all their stuff, early work and stuff, and by 2:00, they're ready to go. The game's 5 hours later.
Yeah, no, it's true. That's what I'm saying. The game has really, really changed in so many different ways, and I think some of the ways are for the better, but maybe not all of them. Let me say.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a different now. I had a bunch of text messages last night from former players saying, "Oh, and a team based on analytics still has not won the World Series." They were so happy when Dusty Baker did it, Brian Schnick with Atlanta, and of course now Bruce Bochy for the fourth time. So you listen to analytics and stuff, but you're watching the game.
No, it's true. I think that I'm all for analytics. I like them. I love it to enhance the game. But until the players become all robots, I am not all for it. I don't think everything needs to be based on analytics because, in my opinion, I like the old school managers, and they keep proving me right. These guys, as you just said, and sometimes you're sitting on the team bus or you're on the plane, and you see a guy walk by and go, "Boy, he looks exhausted," or whatever. And you say, "You know what? I want to give this guy a day off." And then the analytics might not say that. And then if you don't have the sway with that organization, you might not put him in the lineup. Or you might have to put him in the lineup when you don't want to put him in the lineup. And there are those types of things. I think, the human element is still, front and center to me. And I think the analytics need to be incorporated within that scope.
Yeah, you got to read the room and know guys. I know Dusty Baker butted heads with the front office a lot this year. They want to start the young catcher in Pena, and Dusty would say, "Wait a minute now, these pitchers love throwing to Maldonado. I'm not going to take him out of it." It's almost like a Yadier Molina. You give up some of the bat, but he means everything. Being on that field. I remember, early in the season one year, as reporters were asking Mike Matheny, "Hey, were you thinking about pinch hitting for Yadier Molina there in the 8th inning?" We talked privately in his office later on, and he goes, "Absolutely not. You do that, I lose the guy for the whole season. The guy's miserable, and I lose that clubhouse." So a lot of times you're making moves and stuff, not just for that player, but for the other 25 guys in that clubhouse.
Yeah, it's funny. Maldonado, you mentioned, he was like, one of my clients was Willie Peralta from the Brewers. And when Maldonado was coming up with the young guy with the Brewers, I mean, Peralta, you just talk about him all the time. Peralta's a real smart guy, knows the game, very, knowledgeable when it comes to pitching. And he loved to throw to Maldonado. I know like Johan Santana, one of my clients, nobody was like Henry Blanco for him. He loved to pitch to Henry Blanco. That was his guy. So you're right. And I think that's a great point you made, and that, that obviously Dusty made, that's a key aspect to the game as well. The receiving, and just some of these guys just love the way a guy like a Maldonado handles the staff and talks to them and knows how to get out there. And
yeah, a lot of these star pitchers have their own personal catchers. They used to. Remember Maddox always had Andy Perez. That happened forever. And those guys know the pitchers better than anybody else. Remember they used to have the they still have the Players' Choice Awards. So the players, vote who they think that should be the MVP. And I remember when the National League guys came up to me and we're talking. I say, "Who do you vote for this year?" He goes, "The same guy I vote for every year is Yadier Molina." He says, "Nobody in this game impacts the game more than Yadier Molina. I don't care what the stats look like. I know he's the most valuable player."
Yeah, and you said it. That's the problem is some people are just reading the stat sheets or just reading the analytics, and they don't take into account these types of things. So that's I guess that's the point.
Speaking to the analytics, to the average fan, they hear this, they hear that buzzword, they hear, Ivy League guy. What's the genesis of that? Do these guys come down to the locker room? Do they discuss these things with the players? Or is it just like, hey, we're just going to send a fact sheet out down to them and have them decipher it? What is that like? Because, to Chris's point, I think there's room for that. There's space for that in baseball. And I think a lot of fans go with like, oh, that it's all consuming, which I don't really know if it is or not.
Well, it's all based on numbers, really, and not, what's in your heart and mind, your soul, that sort of thing. I bet there's less than a handful of managers that make out their own lineups these days.
That's true.
Coming down from the front office, they're told what to do. Things are scripted. We've seen that. We saw that in the playoffs this year. We've seen it a number of years. Going back to taking out guys with no hitters with the Dodgers with Rich Hill. Of course, the Blake Snell game with Tampa in that 2020 World Series.
Yep.
So many things are scripted. You got to let it go. And then the the bullpen game the Diamondbacks played in Game 4. You saw what Andrew Heaney did for the I'm sorry, what John Gray did,
Right.
and he went with him. You just keep going with the guy because he's hot right there. That wasn't the plan, but Bruce Bochy's watching what everybody else is. This guy's mowing him down. Why should I take him out? Why should I take Heaney out?
Yep. No, that's a great point. I mean, Gray was a key. No, that effort by Gray was a key part of that series. No question about it. I mean, that really could have gone either way at that point, and we might be getting ready for Game 6 if he didn't do what he did.
Yeah, and that's just watching it. He didn't go by the script. I mean, Bruce Bochy's never gone by the script. I think too many managers fall in that trap, and they're not taking regard as, hey, watch the game with your own eyes. If this guy's mowing him down like that, don't take him out. A lot of eyebrows were raised when Diamondbacks did a couple times of Brandon Pfaadt. It ended up working, but maybe it didn't in the long run because the more they use those relievers, the more times they, Texas Rangers are able to see them and get good at bats off them.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I think I wish more managers kind of go off the cuff, right? Because a lot of these guys, they're going to go, to your point, by the book. Hey, this is what they told me to take this guy out. That guy's going to get fired anyway if that team is doing bad anyway. So to me, it's like, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down the way I want to go down. And, that to me really is a thing that really kind of just, for me, just takes a lot out of the game as a fan. I want to see, the unscripted and not so much by the book, the third time around, the batting order. But hey, if the guy's lights out, on that particular day, yes, maybe most of the time, yes, 3 times through the batting order, but maybe this particular game, you as a manager see something different in him that lets you know, hey, this guy's on, no matter what the stats he show.
Yeah, we saw that happen to the Minnesota Twins Blue Jays series where Jose Barrios is pitching lights out. They yanked him, the bullpen gave it up, and they lost the game and lost the series. So the next day in the press conference, they asked the Blue Jays front office what happened. They said, we don't know why John Schneider took him out. Like, wait a minute, that was already orchestrated. Everybody knows it. That's why they had a reliever warming up in the second, third inning for that reason. So you can't throw the manager under the bus. So a lot of these poor managers have to take the hit, from reporters, social media, fans, everything else, when they're not the ones who made the decision.
Yeah, it's true. But I also think when it comes to the managers, it depends on the manager and who it is and who can get away with it. You mentioned Boch and Dusty, guys like that, Buck Showalter with the Mets. Those guys can kind of, they have some play there and can get away with making their own moves. Whereas I remember a few years ago, the Mets had that guy, Mickey Callaway. I mean, Mickey was just, being directed exactly what to do with every move he was making.
No, absolutely. And I think, too, that's what we saw happen, the disaster in San Diego this year, where, Bob Melvin was butting heads with his GM, A.J. Preller, as far as lineups, roster construction, and everything else. I mean, it used to be back maybe 15, 20 years ago where the manager had all the pull. The managers were making the most money. Now, they're almost like pawns where the GMs are making the money. They got the power. And if the manager doesn't like what they're doing, they'll go fire him and hire somebody else.
Yeah, it's like the old Bill Parcells line. If you want me to, if you want me to make the meal, you got to let me go buy the groceries.
Yeah, and there's so many guys that are actually doing that now. We're just a front office and people send the lineups down and stuff like that. So this is what we want. I mean, you can modify it a little bit, but everybody's had numbers. I mean, like Dusty Baker says, we're doing all the analytics too. 20 years ago, but we called it math. We didn't call it math.
Yeah.
So, Bob, where do you see baseball? Forget about 20 years from now, in the near future, 2 or 3 years from now. What do you see it maybe going back to? What's ahead of it that maybe we're not, thinking of now? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think with the rule changes, it helps bring the better athlete out there. I mean, fans love it. They're staying all 9 innings now instead of going home early. The fact that you saw these young teams run and people love watching it. Whether it was the Diamondbacks, the Cincinnati Reds, Marlins ran. But as a lot of these young teams, are athletic and you just take off. You're turning a walk or single into a double. So I think that part's good for the game. And a little more emphasis too on defense. Even though everything now is ruled a hit. There's no errors, but there is a lot more emphasis now on the athletic players.
No, and that's what it should be. I mean, and I think that also goes to a thing that's been talked about also over the last bunch of years is that baseball, wasn't or maybe hasn't been getting the best athletes, and guys have been, attracted to other sport and, more to other sports. But like you said, with the Corbin Carrolls, of the world and watching these guys play out there, I mean, they're fun to watch, and it's great to see these athletic. Even though, like I'm sure if you saw Corbin Carroll walking down the street, you might not be like, "Oh my God, what a great athlete that looks like." But the fact is, look at him run, look at him, play defense, look at him, find a way to get on base and all these things he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, the rule changes help that. I mean, these guys aren't Ricky Henderson, they're not Lou Brock or anything like that. But with the modern fan, it looks like that. I mean, the fans I know get excited when Carroll takes off running or Alec Thomas, those type of things. People like speed. People like athleticism. Back in the day, I mean, nothing is more fun than watching a Willie Wilson leg out a triple.
Yeah.
And the baseball got away from that.
No, it's true. I mean, I always talk about it because I remember as a kid just seeing these guys, and guys would put up 100 stolen bases, and it was like nothing. And it wouldn't even be guys who even hit for high averages or
Willie McGee from the Cardinals.
Yeah, well, Willie McGee, but I mean, there were guys like Rodney Scott. Remember him, Bob?
Oh, sure.
Like he stole like 90-something bases. He hit like 225 at the time, or whatever it was. Or he could go, but you had all these, the big name guys, the Ron LaFleurs and the, Vince Coleman's and those types of players. It was a really fun game to watch, and like you said, I mean. You go back to like those Cardinal teams in the 80s that Whitey Herzog had, where he just pieced like great athletes around one like power bat in the middle, and watching, look at the damage they did. And that's kind of what the Diamondbacks remind me of. The only problem is their big piece in the middle kind of struggled at the, in the second part of the playoffs. And that I think definitely took a little wind out of their sails.
Yeah, they weren't deep enough. A guy like Christian Walker had a fabulous season.
Great season.
Players in the National League, had a poor postseason. And, Carroll was, shut down for a long time until the end, and they couldn't afford that. But yeah, it's a lot more fun to watch than the home run, the walk, the strikeout, and I think, so much emphasis has been made just on on-base percentage. It's like, what does on-base percentage mean? And if all you're doing is clogging the base pass, I mean, go get the remember Bill when they brought the midget from the Cardinals. He drew walks too.
Yeah.
But unless you're going to steal second and third, what goes to walk? Swing the bat. Driving some runs.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know that was a big, complaint too with the Padres. And the coaching staff, at least with Juan Soto. Hey, you're a great hitter. Swing that bat. We don't want you staying on first base on a walk because you're not stealing second. You're not going anywhere.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's someone like that who's an extra base hitter. It's great that he gets on base, but I agree with you. I mean, you want that, you want to see him swing the bat as a fan. You want to see him swing the bat, but if you're with the organization, don't you want to see him hit a double or a home run? I mean, to me, I would.
I think what's hurt the sport as well. On a micro level is also not having, got to the fact that Mike Trout has only had one playoff appearance, Shohei Ohtani, nothing. I think that's also, as we discussed at the beginning of the show, I would love to see what the numbers are for this World Series. I don't think anybody really saw it, other than if you were in Texas or in Arizona. And I think, you still need, for me, that star power. You still need those big market teams to kind of drive everything.
Yeah, I mean, this would be the lowest rated World Series of all time, I think, by far. Yeah, you didn't have that star power. And, you need an East Coast team. I know these people talk about East Coast bias, but you need that. It would have been a different story if the Phillies were in the World Series, particularly with the stars like, Bryce Harper. I was talking to Alex Rodriguez yesterday or 2 days ago and say, it's kind of sad when the most star power is on a Fox TV set before and after games. He's right. With Gene and Ortiz and himself, on the field, it wasn't that star power.
Yeah. I think that to me what was kind of, like, and then also it was also to your point, Bob, that the East Coast, playing when it's 56 degrees outside in the cool weather, the guys rolled up. I'm a Yankee fan, and I to me that's always like that memory of like that fall, when it's cold and these guys, you're playing in the elements. I was like, these guys are both playing in dome stadiums. I don't know. And there's also that part of it where, what if there's a rain out? What if there's 2 days of rain? Does that change the course of the series for whatever reason?
Yeah, I mean, Texas Rangers still complain about that to this day. In 2011, there was a rain out after Game 6, which allowed the Cardinals to set up for Carpenter Game 7 and hurt them. And it never did rain that night, but they called it a rain out. But no, just something about the East. I mean, when I'm every year is nothing like a World Series in New York, Philadelphia, or Boston. It's just different when it's not in one of those cities.
Yeah, I agree with that. By the way, if the Rangers just would have put Ron Washington and just put Endy Chavez in right field instead of Nelson Cruz, they would have won that series. But
no, it's heartbreaking. They still talk about that. So last night after the game, I'm talking with their scouts, and he says, I can finally go back and watch Game 6. He goes, it's just too painful to watch it. And there are guys, Michael Young, Beltre, Ian Kinsler have never watched Game 6 of 2011. It was just too tough for them to watch.
Oh my God. It's funny. Chris, I've told you this. This is not a joke. I'm like I said, I'm a huge Yankee fan. I have yet to see the hit that won the game for the Diamondbacks. Because as soon as he hit the ball, I turned off the TV. And I always say, and like, why haven't you seen it after all these years? I'm like, I'm bitter. We lost to a team that plays in a warehouse in the desert. I'm like, that's what bothers me all the time.
Well, it was so funny because kid Luis Gonzalez, he's like a folk hero here in Phoenix for getting that hit. But the hit went about 70 feet, which is and everything else. It's just like, even he jokes like, man, that's how it went.
It's funny because Mo lived on that one pitch, and that's the one time that pitch actually hurt him.
Yep.
Yeah, he made that big error in the inning, and that was a kind of that was a crazy World Series, anyways. Remember, Diamondbacks blew all 3 games in New York. Really, Diamondbacks probably should have swept that series. It was one-sided. Yep. But the guy, Young Kim, remember, he got coughing it up at Yankee Stadium, and they couldn't even use him again.
Yep.
Chase Field.
No, it's true. But listen, I did enjoy getting a chance to watch some of the guys that that we don't get to see every day, or you might see him more just because you live in Arizona. But I mean, you said with the Moreno, who actually was one of my clients before I stepped away, but Moreno was such a good young player, just someone to really who to just keep an eye on through the years, is a terrific player. And then you mentioned Carroll, obviously, but Evan Carter looks like he's going to be a great player. Seems like a great kid. Could be like a face of the game down the road. I mean, to come in at that age and do what he did and just have that poise and mentality, just that I think these guys are going to be future superstars, that when we do see them back in postseason, they will be the leaders and maybe even the Bryce Harpers of the world.
Yeah, I mean, Texas Rangers did have stars. You're talking Corey Seager, one of the top players in the game. Marcus Semien, who plays every single day. They do have stars. Just because they're in Texas, people don't see them much. And but yeah, it's fun to see those guys too. Semien. He got more plate appearances than any player in baseball history in one season. I think he only missed 1 or 2 games in the last 5 years. So the Rangers spent money, but they spent their money right and getting the right guys. Where a lot of teams just throw money at the talent, not worrying about whether they're going to fit in the clubhouse or not. That was a tight-knit clubhouse. They policed themselves the right way there.
No, they did a heck of a job piecing that team together. Like you said, Simeon struggled in the series, but then he really was a key part of them turning around. He had struggled for a stretch there, but then he got the big hit, and then from there it just the series went their way. But just the way he makes some of the plays he makes, he made a play in the postseason where he was watching the base runner not retouch second base. I mean, that's just high level stuff that, he's a star player. He might, like you said, he might be the most recognized player, but what a terrific ball player. And for him to do that and see that to me, that shows me that's an old school mentality. And, what a terrific ball player is, on top of the fact that like you said, he's a gamer and out there every day and putting up numbers and performing, great clubhouse guy and defense and the whole package, really.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about that the other day. I mean, he learned that stuff from Ron Washington, who's Atlanta now. If you're not hurt, you're playing. Forget about guys saying I need a day off here, and they're just play. I mean, you're getting paid to play. Fans are there to watch you, and he plays every single day. That runs off on the young guys. Young guy comes up and says, "This guy's doing every day. Man, I better do it too." And you see it's what happened with Freddie Freeman doing that now. And those guys in Atlanta, Acuna playing every day. Yeah, that's great. It's great to see. That's old school baseball.
No, I love that. And it's a grind. Baseball is not easy. People don't understand how difficult it is as a player or as anything involved in the game. Even for yourself as a member of the media. I mean, the grind it just never ends, and it's just so long and tedious, and the travel and everything. It's very difficult even as an agent, but it's really is. It's important, and it's great to see. The other day I was, I'm not going to make a big complaint about it. He is on my fantasy basketball team, but I have Jimmy Butler, and the guy, he played like one game, the first game of the season. Then the next game he didn't play, I think, because it was load management. I mean, what is that? What just happened?
Yeah, that's the thing. I remember hearing the stories with Freddie from Atlanta. And guys would come in. I'm not playing today. He goes, "Oh, you hurt? You're going to the injury list?" He goes, "No, I'm not going to the injury list." He goes, "Get out there and play." And so you need kind of the players to police themselves. When guys are taking weeks off at time, months off at time, kind of nursing injuries. You got to play, and it rubs your own teammates the wrong way. You get a horrible reputation in the game.
It's funny. I had heard a story when I from my old days at the Mets that it's an old story, but applicable to what we're talking about. I guess John Milner was an old player with the Mets. He ended up going to the Pirates, and apparently he had a robe he kept in his locker that he would wear if he wasn't feeling well. And when he got to the Pirates, I believe it was Dave Parker took it and just said, "What is this?" And he said, "That's my robe. If I'm not playing well, not feeling well, I do whatever." And Parker just disposed of it immediately and said, "That we don't do that here. You're gonna play when we need you to play." And but that's the mentality that you're talking about.
Oh yeah, well, Dave Parker, I'm sure he burned that robe. He just did throw it
I
away.
think that's what he did, but I don't want to say
By
it.
a bonfire.
I think he did burn it. I'm pretty sure he did. He was hilarious, by the way, the best.
Yeah, that's what those guys did, and that's what the clubhouse leaders.
But but he learned. Look if you go back, he learned that from Willie Stargell and those guys, and Willie Stargell learned it from Roberto Clemente. I mean, it's crazy that that goes back. You're going back like 50 years in baseball, right there.
Yeah. Back then too, as guys would be in the clubhouse for 3-4 hours after a game, drinking beer, talking about the game. Not to get intoxicated or anything, but just to talk ball.
Correct.
I remember Detroit Tigers would trample on those guys. They were there 2-3 in the morning every single night. The Phillies were famous for that. Kansas City Royals doing it. But yeah, I mean the rookies. They told the rookies, "You're not leaving," and that's how you kind of hash things out. If you're upset with somebody or someone did something wrong, you do in that setting.
It builds the camaraderie, but it also helps like sharpen the acumen of the game. And and I couldn't agree with you more. But it's fun, I know that doesn't exist anymore, Bob, like you said. But it's funny for me. I love it because I've had clients through the years that are like that, where they'll talk to you all day. And I've sat in restaurants with clients till 3 a.m. talking about the game with multiple clients, discussing different aspects. And it's fascinating, but it's also it's such an education for anybody listening, because you might not have the same perspective, but it might be an interesting thing that you just learned about somebody else. And some of my favorite times as an agent have been like that, where you're just, you're not even in, it's not, hey, that's my client and I'm your agent. It's we're just two guys talking about baseball and talking about the game. And hey, why did you do this in this situation? Well, here's what I was thinking I should do this, but then when I thought that he might do that, I decided to go the different direction with it, and look, it paid off and it worked. And wow, and that's so it's, that stuff. I love that, the definite, the behind the scenes aspect of the game. And it's a great point by you, Bob. But like you said, that's the type of stuff that rubs off on the young players, and that's what makes them the next generation of those types of guys. And then they become the leaders of the clubhouse, and they pass it along to the next group.
Yeah, I mean, even a game like Game 5, Gabriel Moreno, unbelievable year for the Diamondbacks. He leads on a bunt, first and second leads on a bunt. I guess it was on his own, they said.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, but after a game, you would say, "Hey, you don't do that. You're our best player." If I didn't know it, he wasn't thinking about that. But just when you have that kind of clubhouse camaraderie and talk to guys, you can say constructive criticism without being upset about it.
Yeah, it was a nice bunt, though, by the way.
It was, yeah, you're doing that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So Bob, what season's over? What's next for you? What are the months leading up to spring training like for you?
Well, it's more like the days, because the GM meetings start on Monday. So all the GMs come to town. I don't have to travel again. They're actually in Phoenix.
Oh, they're in Phoenix again, yeah.
20 minutes away. And then the owners' meetings a week later. That's where they're going to vote on the Oakland A's, moving to Las Vegas. And then, as Chris knows, in the winter meetings are always the first week in December. There's always free agency. I mean, everybody's, I don't think anybody cares about anybody else except for Shohei Ohtani. That comes up. But yeah, it's nonstop for almost up until February.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, it's going to keep you busy. I think this is going to be a very interesting offseason. We've been hearing Soto's name out there, obviously. Yeah. Ohtani, and what does that look like contract wise? I've heard people talking about a split contract at some point. It's going to be very fascinating to see what, come April, what the teams look like.
Yeah, here's Ohtani just had Tommy John surgery, and the whole world still wants him. But yeah, I mean, such a marketing attraction too. It's like, obviously he's not not one guy can't be the answer, as we saw in Anaheim, but he puts on a show.
No doubt. Bob, I wanted to just thank you for coming on. It's been great to have you. I think we're excited to see what's going to happen in the future, but we appreciate, I know you were probably pretty beat and ready to, take a couple of days before the GM meetings spark up again next week, but at least you don't have to travel for that. The rest of us do, but listen, thank you so much for coming on. We'd love to have you again soon. But we really appreciate it, and obviously you and I have known each other a long, long time, and you've always been great to me, and hopefully I've done the same with you. But it's great. It's great to have you on. Good to see you, and thanks for coming on.
No, it won't be the same like standing behind a potted plants in the lobby or having some drinks at the bar at 2 o'clock in the morning without you, Chris.
Well, we'll see. I'll be back soon. That's the goal.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob.
All right. Thanks, Bob.
Take care, guys.
Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye. All right, Lou. Great episode. Great to have Bob. He's an awesome guy. And it was he's obviously
great
very
guy.
knowledgeable, and it was great to have him. Lou, thanks. Good job by you. I will we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yes, sir. Next one, go Jets. Monday Night Football.
Take care, everybody. Have a good one.
Take care, guys.
Bye.